Everybody, James Ng here, Biblical Success Coach. Welcome to another episode of the Kingdom Builders podcast. This is a podcast that is aimed to help provide biblical business strategy, success tips, and practical wisdom to help the faith-based entrepreneur build your influence, expand your impact in order to elevate God's kingdom. Today, I got a special guest that is timely right now because I was recording this at the end of January. It's tax time, everyone's favorite time and everything. So I got with me my friend Todd Borger. How are you, Todd?
I'm doing well, James.
Awesome.
Glad to be here. Thanks for having me on.
Absolutely. It's an absolute honor. So if you guys have any questions, I'll do a quick intro on who Todd is. And this is one that you're going to want to take notes on. This is one that you're going to want to share, because there's that saying that Benjamin Franklin said, which is that there's only two things that are guaranteed in life, which is death and taxes. Right. So death, hey, we got that coming on at some point, but taxes for sure are so important. And especially if you're an entrepreneur, taxes are the most expensive bill that you're ever going to pay in your life, regardless, or no matter your mortgage or car payment or anything, it is going to be taxes. So we're going to tackle many different types of topics on are taxes biblical? Like, should we pay them? How should we pay them? Can we write things off? We're going to dive in a lot of different topics, financial stewardship and everything. And in fact, since the beginning, even in Jesus's time, the topic of taxes, it was asked by the disciples and even tax collectors. That topic was something that was very, very prominent back in the day too, and even to this day as well too. So we're going to unpack everything today. So Todd, real quick, if you don't know who Todd is, Todd runs a company called Apex Cloud Accounting. It's a family business, him and his wife. And I love seeing that in today's generation. They help small business owners reach their financial goals through tax savings and financial stewardship. Todd has also been a CPA for decades. He's been in the public accounting arena for a long, long time. This is a gentleman that understands the game of taxes and accounting and everything very closely. So I'm here and I got a notepad and a pen because I want to take some notes at everything. But Todd, thank you so much. And if you don't mind, for our audience that might not know you, do you mind sharing a little bit about your backstory? Who is Todd? How did you get involved even into this accounting world in the beginning?
Yeah, so I wanted to be an accountant since I was pretty much in eighth grade.
Wow.
In eighth grade, I put in my eighth grade yearbook either an accountant or an architect.
Really?
So in high school, I took some drafting classes. I liked those. They were okay. I did okay. But then I took a year-long accounting class and ate it up. I did all my accounting homework and then some, worked ahead, let all my other stuff kind of slide while doing accounting. And then my senior year, I took some more advanced drafting classes, and I was like, this is not for me. No, accounting is for me. So, I went to a small college. It's now a university in Doylestown, PA. And it wasn't known for accounting, but they offered me the most money to go there. So that's that's where I went. I wanted to be a CPA ever since then with regards to that. And I knew that taxes were going to be a strong part of my existence. Even in school, I had electives I could take, and I was one of like 3 people that took like an advanced tax class.
Wow.
That was taught by a manager at a Big 4 firm, probably outside of Philly, in that sense. So I knew that, but so, and then I graduated, went to work in a public accounting firm, and got my CPA, and kind of bounced around between public accounting, private industry, and even software development. I went into tax software development for a few years. I loved that. That was by far my favorite job. I was able to blend technology, my love for technology, as well as taxes, to help build up and improve one of the biggest tax softwares that professionals use. And even I think now they have an arm where they'll actually taxpayers can actually file just like TurboTax and things like that. But
Mm.
so that and yeah, but I've been in public accounting since I moved to Maryland. It was around 10 years ago now.
Oh, wow.
This 10 years ago this month that I moved to Maryland. From there, and I've been in public accounting in that range ever since. So and tax emphasis by far.
Wow.
Even to the point where I started a master's of taxation degree in North Carolina, and I
Mm.
finished it up when I moved here. So it took me a little bit longer than the traditional route in getting that, but I have a master's in taxation as well. So,
Wow. Okay. Uh,
yep.
this gentleman is smart, as you can tell, right? And one thing that I've learned is, especially if you're in business, is that what you want to do is, I think the small business owner typically thinks I can try to do it all myself. And taxes, like even when I start getting into taxes, I'm like, I got this. Why pay extra? Do all these things. But one thing quickly that I realized, and I wonder if our audience, you've realized this too, is taxes can be quite complicated. And especially if you're a business owner, there's benefits of tax write-offs and things like that. But those can also be complicated too. And I just don't want to mess up. So if you're going to do your taxes and you're going to do it done professionally, you want to find people that are loving what they do. And you can tell Todd loves what you do. It's good. I used to think that I was going to be a numbers guy because I'm Asian, and then I'm not. So I'm curious. Let's talk about just the love for accounting, because for me it doesn't click personally, right? Like, but I wonder for you, just out of curiosity, what is it about accounting that got you so intrigued and so interested in that?
Well, I mean, initially it was, I was good at math,
Mm,
so I was like, I'm
mhm,
good at math. Oh, yeah, I'll be accounting, things like that,
mm,
and then you learn, then you take the accounting classes and things like that. And just everything just seemed to click. Now,
mm.
there's some aspects of, accounting that I won't touch, things
Yeah.
like that. I won't, cost accounting and auditing. I knew I wasn't, not tax audits, but auditing of financial statements. I don't really get in. I haven't really gotten into that. I've never had that much really good experience with that. Most of
Mm,
the places I worked at were mostly tax driven. So,
mm,
I worked with that. But yeah, it got to that point. But then, just hearing about it and,
mm.
the point where, the balance sheet, it's called the balance sheet because it should balance, the numbers, these two numbers or three numbers when added together or what have you should equal,
Yeah,
and that's what, it got me with regards to that. So
makes
in
sense.
that respect, so it's, characterizing, you're basically categorizing transactions that are, business expenses into different
Mm,
categories and things like that to see how your business is running and stuff like that. So it's become a lot more uh, analytical
mhm,
since I've been in it, things like that. So that's
mm.
gets it uh, gets you more excited to be able to analyze different things, see how people are surprised.
Yeah.
A lot of different kinds are surprised by, oh, I spent that much on, because they don't really, it's checks and it's credit card
Mm,
transactions
mm.
in most things, and they don't really see, they're not looking at it when you're kind of doing it yourself. You're
Yeah.
not, unless you're, engineer minded. And, a lot of engineers are like, oh yeah, I balance everything, I reconcile it every month, is,
No.
that kind of stuff. That's not the typical small business owner. They're working on their business, things like that. So,
Right. Right.
that's where I want to come alongside them to help them take that burden off of them, because
Makes sense.
you got to stay on top of it. If you don't stay on top of it, it's just after the fact, and I can't really help you in that respect. There's very little things that I can do after the fact, but
Right.
if I know the information beforehand, I can better advise,
Makes sense.
can help take those tax strategies and help you reduce that tax burden.
So love that. Hey guys, if you're
Mhm.
listening to this right now, I'm with Todd Borger, and we're talking about taxes. We're talking about a topic that isn't the sexiest typically, but it's so important. Well, it's sexy for Todd. For most of us, it gives me a headache, If you at all have ever had questions about taxes, comment tax below, whether live or on replay. And if you have any questions, feel free to comment them below too, and we'll definitely get to them whether here or at some other time too. So, Todd, let's help some people today. So let's say I am a small business owner, or even if I'm thinking about getting into business. And I think something that is known is that there is such a thing as tax write-offs. We take a look, and especially recently, we look in the news and the headlines. I know and this is not a political statement, it's just fact. There was this whole controversy about Donald Trump and his taxes. Did he pay his taxes? Did he write them? Like these types of things. Unfortunately, I think a lot of times tax write-offs, they're kind of viewed in a negative way, but there's reasons why they're put into there by the government, that are there because they want to promote businesses, because businesses promote jobs and stuff like that. So we know that there's such a thing as tax write-offs, but what are some of the common things that most people don't know about having a business and being able to save money on taxes or things like that? Like, what are some of the common things you found that most people might not even be aware of?
Well, I mean, if you're a small business, small family business, things like that, the biggest thing is if you have kids that are doing business tasks, you can absolutely positively pay them
Hmm.
and take a deduction. And there's very little, depending on the structure of your small business,
Mm-hmm.
there's very little paperwork that has to be done with regards to that. And it's a tax write-off that if you're in even if you're in the 24 to 32% tax bracket,
Mm-hmm.
they're in the zero. You pay them up to $12,000. They earn up to $12,000. Their tax rate is zero.
Wow.
So you're saving, you know, 12, 24, 32%, up to 37% by paying your kids for doing business related tasks.
So let
And
me
it
break
doesn't
this
have.
down.
Mhm,
So, for example, let's say you have two kids and you pay them 12 grand each. You pay them 24 grand, for example. Let's say your
mhm.
tax rate was 30%. Are you saying that I pay my kids 24 grand and I'm saving 30% of the 24,000, which is whatever that math is, 7,200 or something like that? So we're
Mhm.
giving a $7,200 savings just because of that.
That's correct.
Wow.
Yeah. And that again, the most companies are a single member LLC or a partnership, a family partnership, or they're on a Schedule C. That's self-employment tax, Social Security and Medicare tax that
Mm,
everybody pays as an employee and the employer match. But when you're self-employed, you're paying both rates. So
mm,
15.3%. So you're saving 15.3 plus your, in your situation, in your
mhm.
example, 30%. So it's close to 45% on net income that you're saving when you're doing that.
Dang.
And they're able to, since they have earnings, they're
Yeah.
able to contribute to a Roth IRA
Wow.
and get that clock started at a young age, things like that.
Wow.
And compounding interest. Einstein was like, that's the eighth wonder of the world, ninth wonder of the world, that kind of
Mhm,
stuff. Time is on their side with regards to
mhm.
that, no matter what they do in the future. And so, yeah, absolutely, it's one of the best. And like I said, it's not always, you can't just pay your kids twelve thousand
Right.
dollars.
Right.
It's up to that.
Mhm.
They have to be doing business tasks, things like that.
Gotcha.
But the list of business tasks, it it's pretty long
Makes
with
sense.
different things, depending on what you do, and that kind of stuff. One of my longest clients is a family, and all of their kids. We did this for all of their kids,
Wow.
and they earned whatever they were paid and that kind of stuff. They didn't have any additional taxes because
Yeah.
it was a Schedule C. They were under 18. So it
Mm,
saved them a tremendous amount of money with regards to that.
what
And
a cool strategy.
they're number two, with regards to that, it gets your kids off the couch
Mm,
and doing things that are going to be developing skills that it's going to be harder and harder for young people to develop, because no one's going to want to pay
right.
a young kid, $15-20 an hour
Yeah.
to do the tasks that, that kind of stuff. So it's going to make it harder for them
Mm,
to find that employment outside of that. But if they're able to help, absolutely, it's it's very easy to do.
that's huge. So if you have
Hmm.
kids, guys, take a look at this. What a cool benefit besides tax savings to you, besides paying your kids and actually helping them develop skill sets, right, for the future. Also for them, if you set it up to have them save into a Roth IRA or start to really set them up for the future, that's like a win-win-win situation. Okay, so one thing is, so I'm just taking down a list for myself. And if you're listening to this, I hope you look at these, and these are like to-do lists or things to research, things to look at, right? So one is pay your kids. And any other common tax saving strategies business owners might not know about?
Um, yeah, I mean, anything with regards to, health savings accounts,
Mm,
regardless of if you have to pay for, health insurance yourself as a self-employed person, or you get it through somebody else.
mm,
One of the best tax deductions out there that allows you to deduct medical expenses, or a contribution to a health savings account, which allows you to save for future medical expenses or even current in
mm,
that sense, makes it deductible. It's very hard to deduct straight up without a health savings account. Very hard to deduct qualified medical expenses.
mm,
Extremely difficult. There's a lot of hoops that you have to go through in
mm,
order to do that,
mm,
and you typically have to have a lot.
mm,
But if you're self-employed, you are able to deduct your health insurance. You can save on health insurance premiums by getting a policy that has a health savings account.
yeah.
Health savings account allows you to save for medical expenses
Mm,
from the day you open the account. So any expenses you have going forward, and you contribute to that, it's deductible on your tax return. So it saves you, in your situation, it saves you that 30%.
wow.
Um,
Wow.
different things. So
Okay.
there's a lot of different things when you can, and if you get a spouse involved with the
Mm,
business, it can be just like paying your kids,
wow.
in that respect. So you could get that. That's probably the second biggest thing. And even if you're not, a business owner, you're
Hmm.
just an investor, you have that. That's the biggest deduction that people say. They're like, oh, well, I have this through my work. Did you contribute all that you could? Because you can
Mm,
contribute on a joint, with a family plan, you contribute like $7,000 a year. Most
mm,
employers, they're not putting anywhere near that. They're putting in some,
yeah.
or they're allowing you to contribute. So if you can contribute the rest and save up for those future medical expenses,
Mm,
which everybody has.
yeah.
Everybody, it's just one of those things. And even if you don't, even if you're a super healthy person, it turns into another IRA when you get to be retirement age.
Mm, mm,
So in that respect, so it's a, to me, it's a no brainer. Is that needs to be funded even before an IRA, even before a Roth
mhm,
IRA. If you
mm.
have that, that's the first thing that gets funded.
Wow. Wow.
Mhm.
I didn't even, I mean, I've heard of these things, but then it's like, it's on the tip of my mind, right? So these are like, these are
Yeah.
things anyone can do, and they're just not aware to, right? One of the biggest things with transforming your life is just these little awareness, these little information that if you apply them, they can make a huge difference. And on this topic of taxes, Todd, so far, so, paying your kids, paying your spouse, health savings account, and there's a lot of other, like what I'm aware of, I'm in the network marketing space, and I deal with a lot of different type of entrepreneurial realms, realtors and anyone. There's a lot of people with side hustles or just hustles as a whole now. Um,
hmm
these types of write-offs, is it also, do you have to be full-time in your business, like no other job, or can you start up a side hustle of any type and start to also have some tax advantages? Let's say they're the typical home with a full-time job and then they start up some type of side business. Are there also tax advantages for that type of person?
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Because everything at that point, if it's kind of a part-time thing, you have a full-time job, you're also
Mhm.
doing stuff. It, not everything's going to be fully deductible, but
Yeah.
it's at least partially deductible.
Hmm.
You have a business office, a home office that you're
Mm.
able to do, that you're working on. That's exclusively used. That's it can't be a kitchen table, things like that. But
Mm.
exclusive use, set off. It's an office, things like that. You can fund that. That's you're able to deduct home utility, a portion of your home utilities, mortgage interest,
Mm.
real estate taxes that you're really not getting a benefit from now because of the higher standard deduction that everybody kind of gets. Not too many, a lot less people since the Trump tax cuts came in
Mm.
are itemizing their deductions.
Mm.
Mortgage interest, real estate taxes, and state income taxes, gifts to charity. Those are the three main ones. And with
Mm.
the standard deduction being as high as it is for a joint filing, it's very hard for average person because of other limitations, things like that.
Mm.
So if you can shift some of those expenses to be deductible, like for a home office, to be
Yeah.
deductible against your side hustle income,
Mm.
yeah, the
Mhm.
the mileage that you put on your car,
Mm.
um, the standard mileage rate, it doesn't come close to what it actually costs to operate a vehicle. Everybody
Mhm.
knows that,
Mhm.
but it is what it is. I mean, it's a deduction,
Yeah.
things like that. So at any point you use your car for business,
Yeah.
that's deductible in that respect. So yeah,
Mm.
you're not going to get to write off everything,
Yeah. Yeah.
but you'll at least get some things that have been quote unquote personal before can
Yeah.
be business related, even when you have just a part-time side hustle.
Makes sense. Makes sense. So I heard this stat, and I don't know if this has changed at all, if you have any statement on this, but I heard that the average North American household, if they don't have a business of any type, if they start up a business, they could save anywhere between like $2,000 to $9,000 a year of taxes just with deductions like what it is that you're talking about. If they had a business, if they started to kind of understand strategies like this, do you think that's a true statement? And I've heard that like a while ago, but what would your thoughts be on that?
Um, yeah, again, I think it's if you're doing it to generate a tax loss, then you're really not in business. So
Yeah.
I don't do anything. I don't recommend anybody do anything to just for the tax benefits.
Right.
But it can certainly happen with regards
Mhm.
to that, depending
Mhm.
on the the extent of some equipment and things like that people have to get
Yeah.
that can be completely written off or mostly written off in a first couple of years through depreciation.
Mm.
That
Mm.
that's a huge deduction
Yeah.
that you can. And you could, if you got a loan for it, you didn't even have to put the cash out for it. You got a loan for it, it's still completely deductible
Mm.
as long as it's business related.
Mm.
So that could offset other income. So yeah, you could certainly get into that. I don't, tend to generate losses on,
Mhm.
side businesses unless you know, it it's going to kind of continue, or
Mhm.
you're kind of still going to be in the same tax bracket that you're going to be in the future.
Yeah.
I don't want to take a deduction at 12%.
Mm.
When it in future years it's going to be more valuable at 24 to 32%. You're going
Gotcha.
to lose that 12 to 20% tax deduction, taking it at a lower tax at a lower tax bracket.
Yeah.
So, but it can certainly save
Mhm.
I had clients that would just, they wanted every deduction that they could. They just didn't
Yeah.
want to pay, that kind of
Mm.
stuff. And that worked for them because they had so many deductions
Yeah.
in the future years as well, write-offs, new equipment. They were always buying things like that. So if
Gotcha.
you're getting into that kind of spending to be able to do that, that could certainly work.
Yeah.
But like I said, I like to keep it where it's going to be the most advantageous,
Yeah.
even though it's not fully writing it off in the first year.
Makes sense. And I love the way you answered that question. And this is why I wanted to bring you onto this podcast in particular, because we're talking to the faith-based entrepreneur. And in the Bible, it says things like, just because it's permissible doesn't mean it's acceptable, right? There's things that are legal, but then there's also things that are, is that right? So the way that you answer that is, yeah, you can, but that's probably not the wisest thing to do. And that's our goal, right? Our goal, being people of faith, is, what does God say about these things? What are the right things to do? And if we do things God's way, in the long run, wisdom, there's a proverb that I love. It says it twice in the Bible because it's so big, which is, there's a way that seems right to man, but it leads to death. Right. So there's these shortcuts kind of we try to get through and everything. So what I'm hearing with Todd, I love it because that was I didn't tell you that question before. I asked you that straight up, and that was your answer. And it's evident where your heart is at. So I want to dive into this next topic, an overarching one. I hope you guys got great information from that. If you're in business or you're thinking about getting into business, there's a lot of advantages on taxes for sure. And you should investigate these things. If you're building a legitimate business, you're building a legitimate profit. That's your intention, not just to get in, just to save money. But there is this benefit. Look into these opportunities. I would look at a professional. I'd go to someone like a Todd, for example. I've worked with a CPA for the last decade. This stuff's way over my pay grade, So, but one thing that I love is you talk not just about tax savings, but also the principles of financial stewardship. And in the Bible, it says a lot about money. I mean, what was it, like a third of Jesus' parables are about money? There's so much about money, and especially with taxes, even as well too. So let's talk about biblical financial stewardship. And what does that mean to you? What are some of the main principles that you've followed, and even you help your clients follow as well too?
Yeah, we have to be, the Bible calls us to be faithful in the small things so that we can be faithful in the large things. Whether that's going to happen while we're alive or not, or after that, I'll let the theologians argue that point. But I think it kind of works out for both, in that sense. So there's no guarantee. I don't think there's any guarantee that just because I keep on track of my finances and I'm doing this and I did that I can't, a business of mine can't fail. In the other way, that you can just be a complete, just slick salesman and be successful in that sense. I haven't seen any sort of pattern with regards to that.
Yeah.
Again, one of my favorite song lyrics is that, the good person, the bad person thrives and the good person doesn't. And Jesus loves them both. In that sense, that was a paraphrase. I didn't get that quite right, but that's basically, one of the things that but we are called to be stewards of what God has given us. It's all God's. That I firmly believe. You cannot convince me otherwise. Everything, no matter whose hands it is, if it's in the government's, if it's in mine, if it's in yours, it's God's ultimately. He created it. He's gonna give it. He's gonna take it away. And like I said, whether he does that or not, there's plenty of bad people that have a ton of money. And they're doing a ton of bad things. They'll ultimately get judged for that, things like that. So I believe that. So but I have to be faithful with what I have. And, I can't be envious of what others have. I can't be, and I can't make money what God is supposed to be in my life.
Mm.
That's first,
Mhm.
you know, that's another thing.
Mhm.
So, you know, God has given us a certain amount of time. He's given us a certain amount of money that we have to deal with. I could be incredibly faithful, and he's still not going to give me what I might want in my heart, and that's completely up to him. I have no control over that. All I can do is be faithful with what he gives us. And I think the Bible, and like you said, all the parables, things like that, it's all about being faithful in what God has given us, no matter if that's money and possessions, whether that's, you know, a tremendous amount of time on this earth, a way to communicate with people, different things, whatever your gifts are, be a steward of that to advance his kingdom. And he'll bless you. Again, it may not be financially, but there are plenty of people that are, you know, when you read the Bible and things like that, plenty of people, it did not end well for them.
Mhm.
And they were incredibly faithful,
Mhm. Mhm.
incredibly.
I love that you're making this discernment here because I think we live in a world now. It's unfortunate. You have truth. We were talking about this before we got onto the line live. Truth is being skewed, and whether it's within church, whether it's outside of church. And I love how you went right on the line. For example, there's some churches and or people that have interpreted church a certain way or the Bible a certain way that they basically say, well, if you want to be poverty is piety is the phrase. You must be poor to be pious. But
Yep.
that's not true
Mhm.
as well. There is that side. Paul wasn't the most wealthy person in the world. There were many people that were martyred for sure as well too. But on the flip side too, there were people like Abraham and there were people like Solomon. There were people like King David. There was all different types of people on the flip side as
Mhm.
well too. But wealth is also not righteousness necessarily as well too. Money's money. But what you're
Yep.
saying here is what the Bible is saying is it is entrusted to us. It's not, it's all of God's. And our goal is just to be responsible. And especially when it comes to that's why accounting, that's why really knowing where everything goes. That's what a balance sheet, as for me, as not as exciting as it might seem. I know for you, it's like your life, you know, it's so important because it's a diligence, it's a practice of faith to know, God, this is yours, so how would I take care of it if it's yours? And that would also, when we have that, and I hope this is what our listeners get, that it's all God's. That's what I heard you say, Todd. It's all
Mhm.
God's. And when we view it that way, we're not going to think about tax savings in the way of, let me try to save as much as I can, not try to pay the government what it is that they can get. Let me give to see, you know, the disciples asked, should we pay our taxes? Let me give to Caesar what's Caesar's. Let me give to God what's God's, right? Think about that type of a
Yep.
passage there. And that's where
Mhm.
here, and that's why I love what you just said, Todd. It's so powerful. However, you also mentioned that if you do things biblically, there are principles. There's blessing. Blessing doesn't always mean financially, like outright, like millions or billions of dollars. But there's a profit. When you get a blessing from the Lord, it comes without any type of sorrow. So you get joy, you get happiness, you get peace, you get
That's right.
contentment, these types of things.
Yep.
But you do typically actually start to make more money as well, too, if that's in God's will as well. You save more, you invest more, you can do more and everything. So, in your own life, as you've been learning more about financial stewardship, what impact have you noticed, even just financially, whether it's with you or people that you've known, clients you've worked with, when you're just doing things the right way? Are there general things that you've noticed that have happened or patterns to expect?
I mean, in my life, I just faithfulness of God is apparent no matter what. It There's times I've been incredibly faithful and looked over and done things exactly how I would see that God would want me to do it. And there are times when I, the flesh wins out and I just do things the way that I want them to be done and things like that. And they've worked out, you know, but he has been incredibly faithful to not take, you know, not have balance the scales and things like that. Well, you didn't do this the way I told you, that kind of stuff. No increase for you or what have you. In my present position, I feel incredibly blessed that I'm not only have been paid the most that I have in my career, but also I'm able to contribute the most. That's
Mm,
what I've lacked since I've moved here to Maryland.
mm,
And just transition from, at that point, I came from North Carolina
yeah.
to Maryland, and culture shock, like
Mm,
without a doubt,
mm,
completely 180. And it was horrendous for
wow.
me. And that kind of stuff. But I've seen where God has done and brought me into this place with regards to that,
Mm,
and helped me and provided for me and my family, things like that. It's
mm,
extremely hard. My wife and I have tried, and my wife does not work outside of the home. She
mm,
does have, a few, part-time things that she
mhm,
does, and that kind of stuff. But we've been extremely blessed to, even in this, the home I have that I've been able to purchase right outside of COVID or right during COVID, things like that. How that came to be is a blessing.
mm,
And so, um, I'm sure I would have seen those things sooner if I had
mm.
been more faithful.
Makes sense.
There's no doubt. I agree with regards to that. You put systems and different things in places and things like that. I have friends that they'll save. I'm not. I'm not a. I'm not an intuitive saver.
Mm,
Things like that.
mm,
Um, in that respect. So that to me is more of a. Uh, I know where to and things like that, but I don't. I have other things going on, so it's
mm,
not the first thing for me.
mm,
And so that's, one of the things that, you know, God has been faithful in that kind of in that sense. And, I have friends that, yeah, that's the first thing to do. They save, they have this,
mm,
and they're like, oh, they're crying, crying poverty or what have you for whatever reason. And, they're sitting on a huge bank account.
mm,
For them, it's just not, and I'm not saying that they're not being faithful with regards to that. That's just their personality and things like
yeah.
that. That's just how you know, they want to do it. It's not that savings thing, but it's not their God or anything like that.
Yeah.
For a lot of people, it is,
Mhm.
their businesses, their savings are that kind of stuff. Look, it's in this day and age, it's God or money. I mean,
Mm,
and it's been that way.
mhm.
It says that in the Bible and things like
Yep.
that. And I firmly believe that. Um, whatever, um, in that sense. So
Yeah. Makes total sense. Well said. And for anyone that's listening here, I'm with Todd Berger. It's amazing because we're talking about taxes, but then we're also talking about financial stewardship as well too. And you would think, like, especially being an accountant, right? Typically, when I think about an accountant, they're only about the numbers. If anyone's money driven, seemingly, it could be a tax person, right? And even back in the day, when you're closer to things that can be tempting, and money is one of the big temptations in the world. It's not bad, it's not good, but it could lead you. It's like, if I see some chocolate in front of me, it's not bad or good, but it's going to tempt me as well too. So it's interesting. And even back in the, I think about the tax collectors back in Jesus's day and just the type of reputation that they had, and they did bad things. They weren't bad. The taxes aren't bad, but they did bad things because of the position that they were in. But the reason I bring
mhm.
that up, Todd, is when I'm speaking with you, the biggest thing that I'm getting, and I hope our listeners are getting as well too, is that if you have your priorities right, which is God first, and it's all His, nothing is ours. The biggest source of contention right now in the world is the stress that's going on with money and things in the world, and we want to be in control. But I just hear from you that you're just diligent with what you've been given. You're faithful with what you've been given. It's all His. He can freely give, He can freely take away. And your contentment, your happiness, while it sucks if things don't go well, your happiness is not in your bank account. It's not in your house. It's not in anything. It's just that It's all God's, and you are submitted to his will. And I feel from that, Todd, there's joy. There's the fruits of the Holy Spirit as I'm speaking with you. There's calmness, there's peace, there's contentment, there's joy. That's what we want,
Yeah.
right? No bank account can buy that.
That's correct. That's correct. Yeah, it's joy, with regards to that, no matter what. Look, and one of the things with regards to that is the pursuit of happiness, the pursuit of happiness. I don't want happiness. I don't want happiness because happiness is fleeting. It goes away.
Mm-hmm.
You're happy. You leave your driveway. Somebody cuts you off. You're not happy anymore. But when you have joy with regards to that, and that's, I agree with regards to that. I want to move towards that, to have that. And I'm just able to, when I'm able to contribute, and that's where it's kind of been in my career, is that it's not always, I could have always gotten positions where it would have been, I could have made a lot more money and done a lot of different things like that, but it would have taken away from other parts of my life. And I didn't want to make that sacrifice for that. It wasn't worth it in that respect. But I feel like right now things are moving in a direction where it's going to be very joyful. In one way or another. In that respect. So joy is what I'm looking for. I think that's what everybody should go for. Biblical joy. Look that up, study that with regards to that, because no matter what comes against you, you're going to be happy, for lack of a better word, but that kind of stuff. You're going to be content with what the circumstances, and that's really where I want to go.
It's a huge thing, guys. For anyone that's listening, if there's a message that needs to be heard right now, especially when we're recording this during a recessionary time, during inflation, during a lot of financial stress and everything, it is one of the top stressors of all of us, right? And it's important. That's why the Bible speaks so much about money. Just look throughout it. Like, I think there was something like a sixth of the New Testament is all about money, right? It is that big of a deal because it's so close to our heart, and it reveals a lot about ourselves, right? Think about when Paul says that he's been able to abound in everything, right? Whether he's broke, whether he's rich, paraphrasing that side. But it is important. However, what I will say is, if you do follow his principles, Todd here he has been in all sides of the coin personally. But now, if you also heard, Todd is living a blessed life as well too. Finances are going well. He's able to give more and all that as well too. So I'm also here to not only say that you can have nothing and be happy, you can also have a lot and be happy too. So both are great. There's a saying, you can be happy broke or happy rich. Happy rich can be better because then you can bless others. You could do a lot more. Money by itself is not a bad thing in itself, but we do need to be responsible and diligent and faithful in the small things so we can be entrusted with more, like what you said, Todd. Todd, this has been amazing. There are so many principles today of not just taxes, which is super important, especially during the season, but also of just general biblical financial stewardship for joy. I think that's such a key concept to understand in these days. But Todd, I have a couple other questions for you as well too. But before that, where can people connect with you further? Where's the best place if they have more questions about taxes? I know you have your own business as well too. Where are the best places to connect with you?
So you can go to my website, apexcloudaccounting.com. You get a phone number there, email address, contact us, page, things like that, to get more information, things like that. So that's the best place.
Awesome.
We'll contact you if you have any questions.
Perfect. I have the links out there in the caption as well too. And a couple quick fire questions as we end this one today. But question, do you have a favorite, currently, do you have a favorite Bible verse or a story that comes to mind?
Probably, Philippians 4:19 is the one. I just heard it recently, and I was just like, that is so where I'm at with regards to that. And then one that came across one of my feeds recently, it's just, to look forward, not look behind. things like that. I mean, it's good to learn from mistakes from the past, things like that, but not to dwell on it. We're not to dwell on the past. We're supposed to look forward. There's just so much more that God has for us if we in our keep that in our hands or in our heads.
Absolutely.
So
Those are so key. To read Philippians 4:19, this says, and actually, yeah. So, and my God will supply all your needs according to his riches and glory in Christ Jesus. So powerful. Absolutely. We'll put him
yep.
first in everything. Any favorite pastors or churches that you follow?
Church
or online or anywhere.
Yeah, I have a great local church that's right down the road from us. We've always been on this church journey, things like that for a longest for a lot of years. But we've been able to. It was actually a church plant that came closer to our house, closer to where we were living. For the first time, it had theology that we felt was sound for our family and things like that. And we've been a part of that for going on 10 years now that they're getting close to that. So, and, John Piper, Matt Chandler, those are the pastors that I've listened to in the past that not so much, recently, things like that. Like I said, I've been trying to, stay on, I felt with regards to, listening to it's great to listen to preaching and things like that from different aspects, especially at conferences and stuff like that. But if you're being fed from somewhere where you're not really connected, it just it sowed a lot of discontent in my life in the past that I didn't really want to kind of go there because of the fact of where I'm at right now. So those guys have always been, and John Piper hasn't been preaching for a long time, but he still has his ministry and things like that. And different things. So those are the ones that I've, that I know that are still kind of going around. Unfortunately, there have been some that have not, lasted through this time, unfortunately, and stuff like that. And they were great preachers, but for one other, for a lot of different reasons, disqualified from preaching nationally or internationally or that kind of stuff. So but
makes sense. I love that. I love how grounded you are, Todd. Very, very wise. Everything that I'm hearing here. Any favorite books, just as a whole?
I mean, books that have really, changed my life. I read an autobiography on Hudson Taylor that changed my life with regards to that. Once I read George Mueller, anything on people in the faith that have just been utterly faithful to the point of, George Mueller had, mortgage was due, walking down the street, didn't have the money, all of a sudden, boom, right before he had to pay it, right before he got to where he got to, someone caught up to him and was like, I owe you this money. I've been trying to find you, and would hand it over, and it would be enough for him to continue on or what have you.
Wow.
The incredible provision that God and incredible faithfulness that both of those men have, things like that. So Eric Little, with regards to that, probably my favorite athlete of all time with regards to that, just what he did, and the stand that he took that a lot of people didn't understand, and for him to just kind of walk away at his peak and do what God called him to do. Those people just have, any sort of inspiration that people have. So yeah, autobiographies on those three at least is, I would recommend to anybody.
Those are beautiful. Got those down. Awesome. My last question will be, so for the faith-based entrepreneur that's listening to this, if there's one message that you could leave with them today, what's something that you want us to really leave with and meditate on?
Well, I mean, you have to follow your faith first. You know, first the faith has to be the central part of it. If you're just doing, if you're looking at your faith as a means to get what you ultimately want and serve in that's money, then you're going to be barking up the wrong tree. I mean, you might be blessed now, you might get that, but you will not receive the reward that God has for you with regards to that. So, you know, faith has to be on 7 days a week. It can't just be, I worked and I took a 7th day off, things like that. So, and you know, there's a tremendous, you know, Chick-fil-A is tremendous, just the stand that they've taken with regards to that, to give that day off.
Yeah.
It has never felt like it was, we're doing this to get that. They've just taken that stand to be able to do that we were not going to be open on that day. And, you know, for everybody, the Sabbath is different. You know, a pastor's, their Sunday is not their Sabbath. You know, for some places that, you know, have 4 or 5 services, there's no way that, oh yeah, I get so much rest. No. Yeah. That's not your Sabbath. You know, that's not the Sabbath for them. So, you know, it's a day. It's a Sabbath rest. It's a way to, and the testimonies that people have given where they have been like, look, I worked crazy. I used to work crazy, you know, such and such. And now I took this day off or whatever. And they're like, I get even more stuff done. You know, so what, there's something to say about that. So it's, you know, in that sense, but it all comes down to, you know, faith being what it needs to be in order for you to have that be the first thing that kind of drives what you're going to do with your business.
Yes, absolutely. Todd, this has been a tremendous, tremendous conversation. This is faith building. This is one of those that honestly, there's gonna be 2 reactions. If they're listening to this point, you're in the right place. One was honestly, they're like, that doesn't sound convenient to me. I'm gonna tune off. The other is, no, this is true. And I need to be mindful of these things. And we're being careful. And I love today because you're so discerning. And we are being very, what does the Bible say? What's right? What's wrong? And it's not to say we're not on an extreme today. We're not saying you can't have money. We're not saying that you shouldn't have, you can have money. Like, we're saying put God first and everything else will fall into place, right? Put him and his righteousness first, his kingdom and his righteousness first. All of these things will be added to you. You'll have contentness with gain, whatever that looks like for you. And that's what I'm hearing above all today. And that's what leads into ultimate joy. So I hope that everyone that's listening today, you take into heart what it is that Todd's saying here on the tax side, on the biblical financial stewardship side, on just faith being upfront. It is so key, so important to have today. But Todd, do you mind maybe ending us with a quick prayer? Is that okay with you?
Sure. Absolutely.
Awesome. Fantastic.
God, I just thank you for this time. Thank you for the opportunity with James. I just pray that you would be with him, his business, his family, all those around him that are being on this podcast, and the outreach that it could show, not only for him, but also for you. Allow us to just thank you for this time. Allow us to be faithful in all that we do, and ask that you would continue to bless us, help us to be content in all that we do, whether it's starting a business, whether it's being an investor, whether it's working at a 9-to-5 job, whatever that is, that we will be faithful and be good stewards of all that you have given us. I pray for all this in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen. Hey guys, if you enjoyed this, share this. Be sure to follow Todd on all of his platforms. Links are in the caption below and everything. On that, God bless everyone. Let's be kingdom builders. Talk soon. Bye-bye.
All right. Thanks, James.